Unless you want problems with your boat. If you want problems, do something like this. Here is our dash panel. We got it out. This is all most of the new stuff that's going to be put in this boat. Here's a bunch of the old stuff I've already taken out. The dash panel, this is going to get redone. These gauges are going to get redone. Old fuse panel, old radio, new radio is going to be going in. We've got charge ports, we've got breakers, we've got junction bars, GPS, new floats, new live wells, new lithium batteries, new primer balls, fire extinguishers, live wells. We've got new rod holders going in, all the new wire that's going to be going in. We got 14.2, 16.2, 6 gauge, 4 gauge. We got the new speakers, we got new fuel hose, we got a new water separator bracket, new fuse panels. I might not use this because I'm probably going to do breakers on the panel itself, so this will probably get breakers, so I might not use this. I got junction bars, ground blocks, so we've got a bunch of new stuff going in here. And what we need to do next is go ahead and rip out all the old wiring that's in the boat. We're going to take this out, we're going to take this out. I need to get all this stuff out of here so that way that I can start with a blank canvas. Look at this. This is our transducer wire. Looks like something or somebody has been in here cutting, chewing, dry rot. This is not looking the hottest. Again, that's our transducer wire, so that does not look good for that. We'll have to address that in a little bit. I'm gonna need to, clean all this. This is just too much with all these. Like, look, why do people do this? I don't understand this. This is like the #1 no-no of anything. So here to light one light, here's the wire, here's the ground wire. You have got 1, 2, 3 connections there. Like, that is not, I mean, it could fail here, it could fail there, it could fail there. Like, that is just, I don't understand why people do that, but look at that. I can feel it right now that this thing's about to break off. So, not good. Don't do this. Just add extra wire. There's no need for this. That's just laziness. So, we're going to address that later. Here's one. Here's another one. You got multiple heat shrinks in here in this thing. So just all kinds of, look at that. We got 2 heat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 heat shrinks between this courtesy light and that courtesy light. That is just obviously going to last forever. Here is another wonderful treat, how they were powering the radio. They used some like 6 gauge heat shrinks. Got the ground wire pulling out of the plug. That is safe. And then just tied straight into the main power wires, feeding all the accessories to power up the radio without any kind of fuse protection. So that's outstanding. Unless there is something over here. Okay, yep, there is one 10 amp right there, but still, that is not really good. I would not recommend doing that. So one of the problems, one of the fire hazards that we're going to be getting rid of on the boat. Okay, so here is the power that was feeding the GPS. Looks like they've got the fish finder. They've labeled it fish finder. They ran a wire from here straight back to here where the battery box is. Now if we look in here, they went straight, no fuse, straight to the battery switch. That is outstanding. And look at how wet everything is in here. Like, I don't understand how so much moisture is gathering in here. Like, this is a legitimate issue. So good thing we're going to be moving this battery up to the console, because this is an extremely wet environment. No wonder the water separator is looking the way it's looking. Same with this battery switch. I bet when we take this battery switch off, the back of this looks horrendous. So fortunately, we are going to be doing a lot of eliminating of all these problems. Look at all these zip ties they got on here. Those are just ready to cut your hand all the time. So wonderful, lots of wonderful stuff. Here is part of that wiring harness that comes up here with all these single stranded wires. They go up into the bundle, And yeah, none of it is protected. None of it is sheathed. They are just straight single wires just running throughout the boat. So good thing we are going to be eliminating that and doing duplex. That way it's at least a sheathed wire going all the way, so less problems. We do have a pretty straight shot for the rigging tube. That's going to make things nice, and there is a string left in here for us to use, so that's a lot of good news, you know, benefits that we've got going on here. But let's go ahead and keep pulling these wires out of the boat. Here we have another classic case of some expensive heat shrink connectors with a white band on them for some reason. I'm assuming was a label, but they were never heated. I love it. This is where we're at, where we're going to leave it with the front of the console. This is ready to be pulled out. This is ready to be pulled out. This is our pitot tube that's going to be staying. Got our engine stuff that's going to be staying. This transducer wire that's a little boogered up, but you know, I'm not really sure what we can do about that. We're probably going to just try and put it to the side, so that way whenever it does end up failing, we can replace it. But clean this up, because this is going to be going to an actual, you know, switched power from, you know, the battery switch. It's going to be in here on the console on a breaker the way it should be. This wire looks really good. I'm pretty sure this is going up to the trolling motor. We might be able to leave this wire in the boat, so we might be able to use this when we put the trolling motor on. Other than that, the console is pretty much good. All this stuff is out. I've just kind of put a rag here just for the time being to kind of cover it up, but just a bunch of holes. And here's all the junk that we got pulled out. Most of it's all trash, but next thing that we need to do is I'll probably go ahead and just trace that wire up there for the trolling motor, go to the front, see what that situation looks like. There is a plug up here, right here, so my guess is that in here. Okay, so it is not connected. This is not connected, so access to this is going to be in here, and it's going to be limited, so we're going to deal with that later. For now, I want to get down into here, into the bilge, so that way we can go ahead and get all of these old components pulled out of here. Live well there, bilge pump. I want to get all this cleaned up and scrubbed out, get all these walls cleaned up, so that way we can inspect these hoses and make sure none of them are damaged, as well as we're going to be going to a different float. Like, we're going to do a caged float that's separate from the bilge pump. I like that system better. Remember, I do like simplicity over complexity. Now, for now, let me just get all this stuff pulled out of here and cleaned up, and then once all the components are in there, we'll be able to do work on the wiring to get rid of, you know, this situation that's just laying in here right now. Honestly, this is actually looking pretty good down here. I mean, got that pump out of there. Again, I'm going to be switching it up, so I'm going to take that cage out. That's for the old bilge pump float. I'm going to put the new pump right here on this platform, and then over there I'm going to put the float switch. As you can see, this one is a little bit lower. So what I want to do is, having that lower, you never want your float switch to be lower than the bilge pump because it won't ever turn off. So that's what I'm going to do. Bilge pump's going to go over here all the way down as much as it can, and then I'm going to do the float switch over here as long as I have enough hose there, depending on how long that hose is. If I can get the hose to reach over here, that's going to be the best bet for me to get this to be as effective as possible. But honestly, that right there, that housing looks really good. It does not look like it's been leaking, and on the outside it is got a screen and a nut on there that looks really clean. So I'm going to leave that housing. I'm still going to replace the pump, but now all I need to do is go ahead and get in here with my bleach and a rag, and we will just bleach out all this to clean it all out and get it to be nice and clean looking again. Okay, that is much better, much better. It is not perfect, no, but it is 100 times cleaner. You could even see the hull identification number over here on the side too as well. That's pretty interesting that that's there, and it is completely visible. So this is awesome, way better. There is, you know, obviously some stuff still there, but this looks absolutely phenomenal compared to what it was. Now what I need to do is do the same thing inside the console, and then once the console is clean, then I might as well go ahead and start putting all my components in here, and then once those are in, then I'll be able to start running my wires from over here. I'll go ahead and pull all of these wires out. The only thing back here that is one addition is going to be our anchor wire, or our anchor light that goes right here. So pull that out, put the new base on there. It's gonna have to go down there to that little hole, but easy access to most of this stuff. I did find one problem that I noticed as I was looking around in here. If you can see right there, that hose, actually let me move this. So you see that hose right there? That is our speed hose, and it is pinched behind that right there. So if I was to move this, well, I can't because, oh, there it goes. Oh yeah, look at that hose. So I am sure that this thing is leaking water all over our water separator bracket, which probably is what assisted in it getting to this condition right here, as well as all the water in here, even though I do think that we get water in here from condensation. Well, unfortunately, it looks like our hose here is too short. That's all we have, so there's no way without adding a extension to that. I mean, I guess I could. It is the bilge pump, so it really doesn't matter. I think that might be what I do, is just add an extension to that to get it over to here. I think that would be way better than mounting the bilge pump and then putting the float over here. I mean, I guess that's not that big of a deal either, because all I can do is just mount the bilge pump, and then what I could do is just fill the bilge up with water, put the float switch there, and just move it up until the, or move it down until the bilge pump kicks on, and make sure that it stays off, because you just don't want the bilge pump running and the float being all the way down because there's no water in here. That's the only problem that we have to avoid. So let me kind of consider the differences between the two, and I'll choose which one to do, and then you'll see it. All right, we've got our live well pump in, and we've got our bilge pump in. We do need to secure the float switch, but I want to wait just because those are so close together, and I ended up just putting the bilge pump there, so that way it would kind of work with the hose and I wouldn't have to mess with that. But I went ahead and put some screws in those holes. There was holes previously drilled in there with no holes, so I've just put some sealant on there with some screws. Not the prettiest thing, but it is just going to seal it. I mean, there's already water in there, so it's not like it really does anything, but I mean, it's not going to hurt anything. So now that these are in, let's go ahead and go back up to the console and start working on the wiring in the console. Oh yeah, that looks outstanding. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish out cleaning out the rest of this console. Oh yeah, now that looks really good. I mean, it's not perfect, but it looks outstanding compared to what it did before. There are quite a few spots that I could probably hit a little bit better up here on the top, but again, you know, it's what it is. This right here can go back in. That panel right there, I just need to clean it. That can go back up, and I'm going to be building the thing for the batteries to sit on. And there we go. This is outstanding. This is looking awesome. This is definitely the front, holds the batteries, no problem, no flexing at all. That brace in the middle is pretty much the ticket there, but let me go put it in the boat and make sure it works. All right, now we can really see what we're looking like. This looks absolutely outstanding. Love this box. So this is the PVC board that we made, and it looks absolutely outstanding in here. Batteries are perfectly in the spot. Now what I need to do is go ahead and figure out where I'm going to mount all of my stuff now that I have the batteries in here. We can see exactly how much space we have. Up here is definitely going to be where we put the battery switches and all that. I'm going to make a box up there, so we really have the space between there and the bottom or the top of the batteries to mount stuff. Now, do I want to put something up here on the side up there? I don't want to put anything over there. I don't like that. That is too covered up, even though this is very well covered up too, but at least you kind of have access through it like this. That has access, and then also if I put it on that back wall, we have access to everything on this back wall without having to remove anything. Whereas back here, like, yeah, there is some access, but you know, it's tucked up under there. So what I need to do is basically just kind of go through and pull all of my stuff here, and I just need to place all the stuff against the wall and kind of figure out where everything's going to lay out. Then once I get it all laid out, then I can build backing plates and we can start mounting stuff to the wall as far as moving on with wiring the boat. All right, so after looking at everything, what I've decided is I'm going to mount all of these over here on this corner. I'm going to go ahead and make a piece of PVC that comes down just above my speaker here, that goes up until it can get to where the horn is at. I want to do that because I would like to attach the piece of PVC to that right there. As you can see, there is somewhere that I can put a screw into. It's got coring in there. This has coring, and I can't screw to here because this glass is too thin. It's only as thin as this right here, so that's not thick enough to put a screw in, but the coring is. So if I could put 3 or 4 screws in the plate down here, and then go ahead and put another 2 screws up there in the horn section, then that plate will be perfectly fine. And then I can go ahead and mount these 2 bars. So I'm going to go ahead and measure that and make that piece of PVC, and then that way we can go ahead and start running. We can get these mounted, and then once those are mounted, we can go ahead and start running all of our wires, get rid of all this stuff and start running all of our wires. I'll bring them up through here. I'm going to mount them to the wall there and then run them across this back here behind this, because I can put zip ties on these screws here to screw that stuff to, so that way all my wires will be strapped up on the top there. I would like to not have anything down on the ground, just stuff on the ground, and it's not really what you want. And here is our backing plate for all of our electronics. We're gonna put our splice bars and our bus bars, all that on here. I went ahead and just hit this with the sander just to smooth out those edges, make them, pretty clean. You can heat this up a little bit if you want to make it look even better, but I think this looks fine. And the main thing is it's not going to scratch you when you stick your hand in there and have to mess with anything. That's the main thing. You don't want it to be scratched. So let's go put this in the boat and then start putting our bars, our junction bars, onto this, and then we can start running all of our wires and hooking all those up. All right, so my other camera up here, that other one died, so I got a new one now that's up there. But I got my backing plate put in here, so this thing's good to go. Now what I need to do is start running the wires just to get these to be clean across the top of this, and then I'll get these all my bus bars and everything over to this, and I'll get them put onto the wall now. Yeah. Now I'm going to make the wires for these two are going to go on my compass. These right here are going to be for the horn, and then these two right here are going to be for the phone charger. So I just need to cut a little bit off of here. I'm just going to use some 16-2 because these are all small powered items. So let me cut this down, strip them down, put the ends on there, and then we'll be able to hook up through those three components at least to our junction bars. Now we are to the point where we need to start pulling our wires. I've got the Sharpie so I can label them. We got 14-2 for the live well. We're going to be doing a 14-3. This is a triplex. There's 3 wires in this for our float, constant power, our bilge pump on, and our bilge pump ground, as well as some 16-2 for the anchor light. These are all going to be going to the back. So what I need to do is go ahead and just eliminate a lot of this. I need to cut all these zip ties and then kind of split, pull them apart, so that way, like the horn, I can get rid of that. That can go away. But what I'm basically trying to do is get down to where I can use these as my pull strings and go ahead and leave this in for later. That will just make it a lot easier. This is going to be a pull string because this is not connected to anything. This is ran separate. But these right here, I have one major concern with this, and that is that if my navigation light is zip tied like it is, you see these zip ties, boom, there, zip tie, and there's a zip tie. If this bundle is zip tied down in there, then the navigation's obviously going to go up to the bow. So that is my only concern, is if there are zip ties tying them together. Everything else goes to the back, so I should be able to separate this and use these as pull strings, but we'll see how it goes. And I'm going to also label these before I pull them, and then when I get them pulled, then I can run them up around in here over to our junction bar, so that way we can have them ready to be strapped up. I leave everything kind of hanging until everything is ran. That way when we zip tie all these wires up, we can make it look nice and clean and pretty. Okay, we got everything separated. I got this all kind of cleaned up. I got this one ready to pull. I'm going to attach my 16-2 to this one and pull this one first, and then this one's ready. I was able to get this separated. Luckily, this was not tied together. This is a navigation light, so I've just tied it off up here. That way I can pull that later if I'm going to pull that, which it looks like I am. That's going to be a pain either way, but that one's ready to be pulled, this ready to be pulled, and this ready to be pulled. Actually, no. I'm going to put my wires to these and try and pull this first. Leave this as a backup, and if I can get all 3 of my wires in with this the way it is, then that's going to be outstanding. So I'm going to zip tie all these up and kind of like run all my wires. I'm going to pull some stuff out, label them, and then I will zip tie them to this and wire it with the electrical tape. I'll wrap it in electrical tape, and then I will get some wire glide and I'll put some wire glide on it. That way when we pull it, hopefully it'll be a smooth, easy pull. Okay, so now we have a legitimate concern, because looking here, that wire that I thought was for the navigation, it does come back here. I count 9 wires here. There's 13 wires going down into there. When I come back up here to the front, I have to fish all the way over. I can't really get a camera in there, but if you go down this, there are 3 rigging tubes in there. There are one that goes to the back, that's a big one that all this stuff is going through, and then there is a small one that's going up to the front that has this right here, as well as another 2 wire going up through it, and then that 2 wire comes out of the tube that goes to the front and goes into another smaller tube that again goes to the back, which I think runs along the stringer. So that means that my navigation light comes back with this bundle, goes back to here. It is then somehow put into another bundle that then is over here on the side, which I doubt you'll be able to see it. But over there on the side there is a bundle of wires, and that bundle is where my navigation light then goes back up to the front. So that means that the navigation light was coming from the front to the back, spliced into the anchor light, and then went all the way up to the front of the boat. So we're going to get rid of that. I'm going to try and figure out which one it is, but for now I'm going to release that wire right there and just pull it with the rest of them, so I can pull the whole bundle of all the wires back to here. And then once I get back to here, I'm going to unzip all this, clean all this up, and then I'll get down into here, into this, where all that cluster of wires is, and that way I can pull them all apart, decipher which is which. And then I'm probably going to just string from here up to the front, and then I'll leave a string in there, but I'm not going to use that navigation wire because I'm going to go straight from the front down into here and then straight to the front. I don't want to do the whole back and forth and run 30 feet of wire for no reason. That's just unnecessary. So that's where we're at. I'm going to let this go, and I'm going to pull this whole bundle together. Okay, so now that I got all my wires back here, what I need to do is go ahead and just take this bundle off. I'm going to get that so I can get this separated. Wipe these wires down because now they're just filthy after running through there. And I want to unzip tie all of this stuff, and just basically I want to clean this whole compartment out, get all this stuff out of here, so that way I can determine what lengths I need to cut my wires. I need to run them down to the bilge as well up to my anchor light. So I want to make sure that I get all these lengths right. That way I'll just, for right now, I'm just going to stick those into the console because it does look like it's about to rain. But I want to clean all this up before I actually cut these. That way I can make sure that I leave one loop back here for service, as well as have enough to get down here into the bilge and have them strapped up and hooked up the way I want them to be ran. Well, if we have a problem with this harness, I think I have found what that problem is. I don't think that it actually pierced one of the wires, but look at that. That is just one of those things that you find that, yeah, you could have something like that through your wiring harness causing you all kinds of issues. But I don't think that pierced the harness, but it is something that I'm going to clean up and investigate and tape up. If not, I'm not going to leave it like that, but just kind of funny. Yeah, we good, no problems here. This right here is a definite issue. That is, for some reason, this is really ironic, but here is the main ground cable for all of the boat. They cut the cable, and then they used a splice to splice in this ground right here, as well as the ground that goes to the anchor light. So why they chose to ground the bilge pump and the anchor light to the middle of the main powerhouse ground, I have no idea. But just another thing that you should not do, unless you want problems with your boat. If you want problems, do something like this. I think I have this kind of the way I want it. I've got all of my engine stuff and the transducer wire all nice and clean like this. So that's going to be one nice piece, one nice strand, one nice loom of wire. It's going to go right down just with the mechanical cable and the shift throttle cables. Good bend all the way there. all of this will fit, you know, out there, so that won't be an issue. Any extra I will probably end up looping up here in this corner, just kind of loop it up, and it'll be just kind of right here in a bundle. Water separator bracket can stay there. Fuel line can come up and just come off of this loom up over to there, boom, and hook up. Or actually I could probably, nah, I don't want to do that. I'd rather just, yeah, I'm gonna make it come up and go and connect right there. My other option is to bring it over to like this and have one loop right here, so it'll be kind of like a bend, come off this and straight to the water separator bracket, and then come out the other way and straight across. So I might do that. That'll free up all this wall, so it won't be like anything on there. Now, fire extinguisher is usually right here. I might leave it there, I don't know, I might move it to the console, might move it over to here. But other than that, now I've got the wires here. It's going to be my anchor, my bilge, and my live well. They're coming out right like that. I do want to either go under or over all of these wires. Once I get this bundle all straightened out, I will do that with these. But I'm going to bring them along this edge down on the bottom and then through that hole right there. This is the nav light. I'm just going to string this, so that'll go away. This is the anchor light, so that's going to get a new one, and that's going to go up. So there'll only be 3 wires running across the bottom here out that hole, and if I keep them over to that corner, it gives more usable space in here. That's kind of the goal, is the rigging has to be in here, but at the same time, if I can get it to be one straight nice loom, then you know, this actually frees up this space to be used for something else. I'm going to go ahead and just get these kind of length. They're going to be long. I'm just going to pull them out, kind of get them down in here to the bilge where they come out, as well as the anchor, kind of get it to be that length right there with that loop. So that way then I can go back up to the console and start working them across the dash to get them into place where we need to be, so I can cut them and put ends on them with a little bit extra here. If I cut it off, so what if I, you know, lose a foot or two of this, I'm not too concerned about that. Okay, the back compartment is looking fresh. Got all the wires running down like this. I decided to go ahead and run all of my anchor, live well, and bilge wires up with the rigging and then down. This is the fuel hose. Fuel bracket's going to stay right there, but this time I'm going to have it like that, so that way that is just connected to the fuel filter like that, and then the other line will come out, come straight over. I'm going to drape all this rigging as one unit opposed to having 3 separate ones, but I need to make the battery cables still, and I also want to spiral wrap this, so I'm not going to cut these zip ties yet until I get that water separator in here, as well as, you know, get the spiral wrap, so that way I can spiral wrap it all together nice and clean. But other than that, now this is a super usable compartment. I do not know, I do have a problem with the water situation still. I don't know why this is always so wet in here. As you can see, the mold everywhere. I don't know if it is bilge water that gets up in here and condensates, or if this compartment here is leaking, and if it's leaking, then that is what's filling this up. And then it's, you know, obviously there's no drains here. I don't, there's a screw hole there, but it doesn't seem to drain, so I might even poke a hole in the back there for water to drain out. That way it can get to the bilge. But I mean, it could be coming from the rigging tube. I really don't know where the water problem is. I'll probably pull this compartment when we clean everything, and that way I can reseal this hatch just to try and see if that's the problem. But really, I'm very unsure of why there gets so much water in here. But at least this is usable space as far as being able to put stuff that is in a waterproof container or something like that. Now with that complete, now we can, something's on my, we can go ahead and move on back down into our bilge over here, where we just need to hook up our live well and our bilge. I've got tons of wire here. I want to make sure I leave this much wire, so that way whenever we do have to work on the bilge, you got to replace the float, whatever it may be, we can actually just kind of pull all the wiring out, wire it here above the deck, and then put it down, zip tie it into a loop, and have it looking real nice and fresh. I also left that other wire in there, so you can see that wire right there. You can see that wire. I left that and tied that up, so that way that is the wire that's going up through the rigging tube. So let me go ahead and hook up my bilge, float, and all that down here, and then that will be it for back here. Is outside of mounting that float switch. I do need to mount the float switch still, but that's pretty much what's going on back here. Bilge is starting to look really good too. See if I can't get the, there we go, look at that. That is looking way better than it was. I do need to attach my float still, but wires, nice loops. Heat shrinks are not down where they'll be in the water, but they're totally accessible with loops of wire, so that way when it does come time to mess with it, you can actually pull it out and mess with it. Serviceability is a massive thing when we're talking about live wells and bilge pumps and float switches. So this is looking good. Everything's, I mean, those wires are really dirty, but that's only because it is about 100 degrees outside and I am leaking all over everything. Okay, we've got most of our wiring all kind of buttoned up, kind of ran across the top here, you know, going all the way over to there. And then a lot of it is also, you know, kind of ran out, ready to be hooked up. I don't like to strap anything down. What I like to do is just take zip ties, have them loose, get all the wires ran, so that way we can then cut them the way we need them and then label them properly. So what I need to do, the only thing I have left on this side is the navigation lights. So I need to pull this out. All these can sit to the side because all those are pretty much ready to go and be buttoned up. But before we can tighten up zip ties and straighten everything out, the last thing, I've got the speaker hooked up, the last thing I need is the navigation wire. So I'm going to pull this out and pull some of that wire up to the front, cut it, and leave it in the tube as a pull string to the back. But we're going to then use the old wire as a pull string to pull our new wire through the tube up to the front, and then we can run it along our top up here and get that one cut. So then I can actually tighten up all the zip ties that are right here, and once all those are tightened up, I can then put this dash panel, the lower piece, in, and then all my wires will just be right here to where we just need to cut them to length and then put ends on them. We've got our navigation light wire all the way up to the front, and now what I need to do is just basically do the same thing like I did with all the other ones. I'll just pull a bunch of wire out, and then I'll, you know, mock it up all the way over to there, cut it, run it through all of our zip ties, and that will be our navigation wire. I will then be able to start buttoning up all of these. So while I'm down here, I'm going to go ahead and run my fuel tank sender ground and positive wire, or, well, you know, the sensing wire, the pink wire, run that down there so that way I can zip tie all of this up and have it nice, neat, and tidy We need to put something here. I'll probably just scratch this right here and then put another clamp there. It's not big enough for me to put a screw clamp on there, so I'll probably scratch that off and then use some Total Boat cyanoacrylate, which is like, you know, just an adhesive. So I'll be able to stick one of those there. These are just going to kind of come out here and droop kind of like this. We'll only really have this little bundle right here, so that'll be like that. And then we'll have our trolling motor wires and shift cable steering. So that'll look actually really clean once I get all this over, and we just have those like that. And then these will probably go over. I'll bring them up with that and then across over to where our battery switches are going to go up there. So that's going to look really, really clean. Let me go ahead and hook up my fuel sender. Once I get the fuel sender hooked up, then I can go ahead and finish running this all the way over to the top, and that'll basically have all of this corner buttoned up, done. I could zip tie it and call it finished. So this is the cyanoacrylate that I was talking about using. It's just basically like a super adhesive thing. I'm going to be using the thick stuff, so the Total Boat thick instant adhesive bond and fill, and I'm just going to try and, you know, stick it to these right here. I'm going to sand the wall real quick, and once I sand that wall, then I'll be able to just kind of put a little bit of this on these, stick them on there, let them dry. I mean, they dry pretty instantly, but 30 seconds to set, 24 hours to cure. So I want to let this sit for, you know, 24, 48 hours, whatever, before we try and strap with a zip tie, because if you do it too early, you'll pull the this thing off of the wall, and that's not what we want to do. Okay, we've got our radio and 2 speaker wires up to where our radio is going to go, and then when we look in here, got pretty much everything else wired up. So courtesy lights wired up, our speakers wired up, ready to go. Wiring all up here is pretty much done and strapped in. So we've got this bar right here is pretty much all done. This bar is good to go with the exception of the ground wire. I need to ground it to the battery, so that needs to be done, as well as tie these 2 bars together, but that can be all done at the same time. I have got this wire sticking out because this is for the float switch. This is the full auto on. That's going to go to a fuse straight to the battery. So when we put the batteries in, that's where this wire is going to go, as well as these 2 wires here, which power up everything on all the switches. That is going to go up to this location here where I'm going to put the battery switches. So when I put the battery switches in, that's where those 2 are going to hook up, and I'll clean up, you know, where the way they are run across there. But everything else is pretty much ready. I have not strapped up this or that bundle there, simply because I need to get the power here for the accessory, which is our charge ports and the other light on the lower dash panel, it's going to go here. So let me put this dash panel in, and then that will pretty much be all of the wiring complete and done. I'll put the cap on here. I'm not going to wire up these bus bars because I need to get the batteries in first, but before we put the batteries in, I do need to work on this project up here with the battery switches, but that's going to be a whole nother video because I got to build an entire compartment up there, so that way I can flip that seat cushion down and make that look really slick. But these are all ready for our radio. Let me go get that dash panel and put it in. And that is looking beautiful. So now what I need to do is go ahead and stick my radio in there. It appears that I just heat shrink the radio cables around the steering cable. That is just perfect. So now I need to cut these off and get this back around the steering cable. I don't know why I just did that. Whenever you are doing any kind of rewire like this, you need to never be worried about zip ties because you're going to use a whole bunch of them. The best thing is to get them for a really good price, and I use ziptie.com in order to get mine, so you can get thousands of them very, very cheap, and you can get the top nice UV protectant ones that are good for using on a boat. Now this is what our rigging is looking like back here. I just put spiral wrap on everything. I got everything pretty much ran real smoothly. I left the fuel line out so that way when I turn the engine back and forth it doesn't bind up in any way. So that kind of came out really, really nice and is moving good, and also it's off the floor so you can get back here with a brush and really be able to, like, you know, clean it when you're cleaning the boat. And in here, this is what this looks like. Again, all spiral wrapped, looking really clean. I only made it to there with the spiral wrap that I got. This is just a fuel hose that's in here, it doesn't mean anything. Those are the two water tubes for the pitot. I am still debating on whether or not I should get rid of those or not, so that's why those are still there. Fuel lines are just going to go like this over to my water separator bracket, so those will be right there. Totally clean, lots of space in here, looks way better than it did. Everything's nice and zip tied, clean. And this is what we're looking like with our battery switch situation, which looks amazing. I got this hinge, I got it really tight right now, that's why it's kind of squeaky, but I've got two little latches coming for right here. Those are going to come in, and I'm going to make a whole video about this. But this is where I've got trolling motor battery, house engine battery, the trolling motor breaker, as well as the trolling motor charger right here. So this came out looking ridiculously nice, but you'll see all this whenever we make the video and you see exactly how I put this in here and when I make all the cables to hook up my batteries. And this came out looking really, really good. I do need to put the batteries in, but as far as the wiring goes, really, really happy about this. Got nice bends here, everything's zip tied nice and tight all the way across. New Wire did fantastic with the actual wiring up of the switches, but other than that, the rest of the wiring, we're all zip tied, clean, run across. Got all of our radio and everything up, tension relief, everything's nice and tight, not gonna fall apart and bounce around and give us any kind of problems. Everything's labeled nice and neat. Really, really like that. I do need to put the wire here for the automatic bilge pump or the flow switch, as well as the grounds for here, and then these two wires here are going to go up to my battery switches. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and move over to working on those battery switches. So make sure you subscribe and check out that video.